President Cyril Ramaphosa has addressed the EU Parliament in Strasbourg, France. The president is on an official visit to Europe. He'll also attend the 7th South Africa European Union Summit in Brussels tomorrow. Well, for more on the story, we cross to our correspondent in Brussels, Jack Parrock. Good afternoon, Jack. What's the thrust of President Cyril Ramaphosa's speech, which I understand is still underway?
Yeah, he's still speaking in the Parliament in Strasbourg. It's been going down very well. He's had regular bursts of applause and was welcomed with a huge round of applause as he entered the chamber. Now, the thrust of his speech has been mainly sort of overarching issues of unity, of European support for the anti-apartheid movement, and also talking about Nelson Mandela. Obviously, there was celebrations here in Europe for the 100-year centenary of Nelson Mandela's birth. He's been talking about how Nelson Mandela was not only a figure in Africa of peace, but also has huge importance everywhere else, especially here in Europe. Nelson Mandela himself, in fact, came to the European Parliament just after he was released from prison. So there's a strong link between South African presidents and the European Parliament. And as I say, the speech of sort of multilateralism, supporting the international order, and supporting being friends with partner countries and with partner continents, that's been the current thrust of the president's speech so far.
You're very multi-skilled, because I know you're trying to listen to the president as you speak to me. But do we know whether he's really looking hard for some EU funds as well?
Well, we know that the president is here looking for trade and investment issues. We know that because he's brought the Trade Minister, Rob Davies, and the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, as well with him. It's clear that this summit is about trying to raise foreign investment. I spoke to the Trade Minister, Rob Davies, yesterday. He said that South Africa's turned a corner now and is open for business, and that he gets the sense that here in Europe, that's the feeling, that there is an appetite for reinvesting with foreign investment into South Africa. 73% of foreign investment in the country comes from the European Union.
How much airtime or how much publicity does South Africa get in the European Union area? You know, are there lots of articles about developments here in the country? What do people think about some of the developments that have been occurring in the country thus far?
Well, obviously there's significant coverage, and especially on a day like today when the President is addressing the European Parliament. This is a real opportunity for the Europeans to scout out who is, to them, a relatively new President, and especially for the European lawmakers. There's a strong association between the South African Parliament and the European Parliament. There's lots of exchanges between members of those two houses. So there's a lot of discussion about that. But obviously, there are some concerns in Europe about the sort of BRICS movement as well, with Russia and China and India and Brazil and South Africa, obviously, and what that means, that sort of trading bloc that's sort of circulating on the international sphere. So they'll be very interested here in Europe to see how South Africa fits into that and how that changes perhaps the relationship that Europe might have with the South African government.
And then tomorrow, as you've mentioned to us, there's going to be that South Africa European Union meeting. What can we expect to come out of that? Typically, what sort of issues are discussed there?
Well, they'll talk. South Africa and the European Union have what's known as a strategic partnership. So this is a really sort of deep and sort of high-level partnership between the two sides. And so they can talk basically about anything and everything. But the main thing that they're going to be talking about really is trade and investment. And we know that that's what Cyril Ramaphosa wants to do during this trip. But they'll obviously talk about other big issues of the day. Things like the Iran nuclear deal, things like the relationship that the European Union and South Africa has with the United States, and also you might have seen that there's been a lot of movement on Brexit at the moment. A deal is now tabled at a technical level. That came out last night. There's huge meetings going on here in Brussels, intense meetings in the cabinet in London, and you can rest assured that Cyril Ramaphosa, the South African president, will want to ask the European Union leaders what this Brexit deal is going to mean for the South African relationship, both with the European Union and with the United Kingdom after Brexit.
Absolutely, Jack. We're going to leave it there. Thank you very much for that report. That was Jack Parrock reporting from Europe.